Brother Ben here? Brother Ben. Now, Ben got a heck of a program. A lot of people listening to Brother Ben. And Ben tells them about the minister. And Ben tells them about the minister.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, I bear witness there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. I would like to greet you all with the greeting words of peace we said in the Arabic language of Assalamu alaikum. Today we're going to be talking about part 2 of reparations. What does America owe? We started part 1 last Friday, so if you missed it, it is on my YouTube channel. Go to Brother Ben X on YouTube. Go to the live section and you can check out part 1 of that. Before we get started here, I want to start off with what the Muslims want when it comes to quote unquote reparations, if you will, because the word reparations isn't necessarily used here. However, I know the minister said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad wanted to show us what justice looks like. So as we see our people getting more involved with this reparations conversation, I wanted to share what's been on the back of Muhammad Speaks for decades and the Final Call newspaper for decades. So this is what the Muslims want. Let's start off with point number 4, which states, we want our people in America whose parents or grandparents who were descendants from slaves to be allowed to establish a separate state or territory of their own, either on this continent or elsewhere. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to provide such land and that the area must be fertile and minerally rich. We believe that our former slave masters are obligated to maintain and supply our needs in this separate territory for the next 20 to 25 years until we are able to produce and supply our own needs. Since we cannot get along with them in peace and equality after giving them 400 years of our sweat and blood and receiving in return some of the worst treatment human beings have ever experienced, we believe our contributions to this land and the suffering forced upon us by white America justifies our demand for complete separation in a state or territory of our own. So we know the conversation oftentimes is about money, and that is old. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad here lays out land. And it should not just be land, but fertile land. Land, not just land, but also, hey man, look, obligated to maintain and supply our needs for the next 20 to 25 years. So the minister at one point said, he just wants to show us what justice looks like. So as we go into this part 2 of our message here, reparation, what does America owe? Please, if you're here on your for the first time on Zoom, make sure you take notes so that at the end you can share some of the things that stands out or stood out for you. Let me pull this up for us 1 second. Here we go.
Don't know either. That's why you can walk around willy-nilly, laughing and joking and playing and dancing and popping your finger and shaking your backside because you don't know what happened to you. And anybody that tries to teach you, they call them a hate teacher. There's not a Jewish person in America who is unaware of the Holocaust. If you can find me one Jewish child that is unaware of what Nazi Germany did to the Jewish people, I ain't gonna say I'm gonna give you some money, because you'll lie and tell me they didn't know. But you can't turn on your radio or your television without somebody telling you of the horror of what happened in Nazi Germany to Jewish people. The Jewish people are taught to remember so that they can stand up and say, never, never, ever again. I want us to become so filled with the knowledge of what happened to us and our rich historic past that we will rise as a people and say and mean it, never, ever, ever again. As a student and representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, whom we believe Allah God has raised as a warner and a bearer of good news, not only to us, but to the government and people of the United States and to the people of the world. Because the peoples of the world, the nations of the world, right now are in the throes of divine judgment. And if you don't know what's happening from a scriptural prophetic viewpoint, you may find yourself losing your life today, being in the wrong place with the wrong one at the wrong time. See, a new government is coming in, and it will not be headed by President Bush or Tony Blair or Gerhard Schroeder or the Italian Prime Minister Berlusconi, thank you, and the Japanese Prime Minister or the Chinese President. No. Everybody, they had their day. See? You believe in Jesus? Let me see the hands of those who believe in Jesus. All right, good. What did he say? His kingdom was not of this world. He came in the name of the Father to establish a kingdom on earth, a righteous kingdom where everybody, regardless of their race, their creed, or their color, if they believed in him, all artificial barriers would be broken, and they would be the foundational stones of a new government that will replace the governments of the earth who have misused their power and authority over the people that they did not create. And I'll tell you something. As this lecture proceeds, I'm not going to keep you that long, but as this lecture proceeds, I hope to show you how every leader that has risen in America, in Africa, in Asia, in Central and South America, that is for the people, must be destroyed by the satanic powers that are ruling America today. We're going to get to that in a minute. Now, England and America, if they don't wish to look at this, they won't be a part of the solution. They'll be the problem. And that problem is going to be removed today by the power of the Lord of the worlds. Now, I know that as a people, we believe that America is all powerful. I know. And there's no question that America is very, very powerful. But so was Pharaoh. So was Nero. So was the Khosrows of Persia. Everybody that thought they had that kind of power, time and the motion of people toward freedom set them down. So if I were President Bush, I wouldn't worry about weapons of mass destruction
Time to stop at the store. It's a little breakfast going on there.
that you can take away from Libya or Iran or North Korea. Can you imagine that? America, the only nation on earth that used it, got enough weapons of mass destruction that she can destroy humanity 30 times over. And who's next? England, who has been the #1 terrorizer of the darker people of the earth. She got weapons of mass destruction. France, another colonizing power, brutally suppressing people of Africa, Southeast Asia, the Caribbean. But they have weapons of mass destruction, and that's all right. But no people of color should have one to produce détente. Listen to me good, politicians, please. As long as Russia had it and America had it, there was mutual annihilation possible. Let's talk. Let's talk. If they have and you don't have, then the arrogance of their having makes them difficult to talk with at the negotiating table. Israel is an occupying power. She has weapons of mass destruction that she can destroy the whole Arab world. That's why there won't be successful peace talks. For what? You can't bring nothing to me. I got it. And my big brother in the West will back me up. So you Palestinians and Arabs, take what I give you. It's the most liberal offer. But it's not justice. It's not fair. But even if China didn't have it, but China does, or even though they don't like China, let's talk. Let's talk about things. Got rockets that can reach our shores. Let's talk. Oh, yes, let's. I'm going to give you most favored trading status. I hate your guts, but you got something that I'm scared of. Let's talk about it. When you're dealing with a bully and a coward, if you don't have juice, he walk all over you. So China got it. But China had problems on her eastern border with India, so India now has it. India and Pakistan don't get along, so now Pakistan has it. Libya had it, but decided, well, I see a bullet coming. You know the Matrix? He dodged that one. May Allah bless you, Brother Gaddafi. It's a wise move. You don't need it anyway. But I want to say this to America. Even if you got everybody in the world to give up theirs for favored status with you, what you're going to have to deal with is the power of an angry God today. And I'm telling you straight up, you can't win. That's why I want to talk to you about what God promises and give you a chance to do what's right. Now, I'd like to lay the first foundation of Scripture of our suffering. The Bible says Abraham went to sleep one night, and lo, a horror of great darkness fell upon him. And God said to Abram, know of a surety that your seed will be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. But also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. That's a promise. That's a promise. Here's the first time that a prophecy is made of a people going into a state of bondage and affliction for 400 years, and that God was going to judge the nation that the seed of Abraham would serve. And afterwards, they're going to come out with great substance. That's a promise. The next time we see a bondage situation set up in the progression of history was the children of Israel being in bondage in Egypt. And in their bondage and their suffering, it's written that God heard their moaning and their groaning on account of their harsh taskmasters. He didn't send somebody. He said, I think I will go down and see whether the cry is altogether that I have heard. And that's when Moses saw a light and traveled toward that light. And the scriptures of the Bible call it a burning bush. And God spoke to Moses and told him, take off your shoes. The ground where you stand is holy. I got a mission for you, Moses. What is the mission, Lord? I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him that I said, let my people go. Moses was shook. Moses was frightened. Moses knew he had an impediment of speech. He says, send my brother with me. He's eloquent of speech. But God told Moses, who made your mouth? I made it, Moses. Don't worry about your slowness of speech. He said, well, who should I tell him sent me? Who? He said, tell him, I am that I am. I said, well, what you mean by that? I am is the present tense. Mean I'm present. I'm in the world. And I've come to deal justice to Pharaoh. Go tell him what I said, and don't be afraid. I'm with you. Well, you know the history. I don't have to go over that. 10 plagues hit him. The last one was the plague of death. Then he said, Lord, get him out of here. Get him out. And then after he said, get him out, he said, hell no. Bring the army. Kill him. Kill him. And that's when God stepped in and slew Pharaoh's army. The Quran says he saved Pharaoh's body, even though he drowned. Because at the last minute, Pharaoh going down in the water, glug, 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 glug. He said, I bear witness that there is no God but the God of Moses and Aaron. And because he bore witness, God saved his body. It's over in the museum in Cairo. What did he save his body for? So that a man like President Bush can go and look at a Pharaoh that was powerful but is dead and powerless, so that he will know that the same God that dealt with Pharaoh is well able to deal with the power of the government of the United States of America. Now, please, I don't want to frighten nobody. But I just have to get this off of me. If I never speak again, I have to get it off of me. But look at this. History progresses. The children of Israel are brought out of Egypt. Today they celebrate Passover to remember the favor of God to the children of Israel. God favored the children of Israel time and time again. But now, if you move to the book of Deuteronomy, God is talking to Moses. Listen to his words. I am going to raise them up a prophet like unto you, Moses. And I'm going to put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So now Moses becomes a prototype of a man that would come that would be like Moses. Well, you can't have a man like Moses unless you have a people like the children of Israel. You can't have a man like Moses unless you have a king like Pharaoh. You can't have a man like Moses unless you have 400 years of brutal treatment. When I was studying plane geometry, they had a theorem that goes like this. If side angle side of triangle A is equal to side angle side of triangle B, then these triangles are said to be congruent. Dear Christians and Muslims, I got to talk to you. Jesus fit some of the picture. I want to reason now. I don't want you to walk away from me. The historical Jesus did not act or be a man like Moses. He was not a slave. Even though he was in the Roman Empire, they were under. Listen to this. Blacks were subject to the cruelest punishments for acting on their desire for freedom or for the slightest infraction. Lynchings, corpse mutilations, beheadings, live burnings, and ritual displaying of amputated body parts was commonplace. There are many recorded cases of impalings of the severed heads of Africans as a warning to other blacks. Whippings were cruel and sadistic, resulting in acute blood loss, shock, and infection, and were often fatal. One former slave wrote of having witnessed a black man being forced to whip his own mother to death. The shrieks of horror were often audible for miles. Blacks were suspended by their wrists or stretched across the ground before a cowhide or paddle beating. These bloody, flesh-gouging floggings would sometimes last for hours, consisting of hundreds of lashes before mustard, cayenne, salt, or turpentine would be applied to their wounds to prolong the torture. Pregnant women were forced to lie face down in a whipping hole dug out for her belly so she could be whipped while preserving her valuable slave infant. Some blacks were whipped until their skin was completely removed, and the slave who was forced to apply the whipping was subject to the same if the slave showed any mercy. This is why a black policeman today, to prove he hates his own, will sometimes beat us worse than the white man. This is the way we were bred. This is why, black woman, you get no respect, because we were forced to have sex with you, not to marry you, but to have sex with you, to produce babies for a slave master. And today they have a hell of a nerve to talk about our immorality. Our little bastard children. I read about a black woman in slavery who had 4 children. And the day had come that the slave master was going to sell her children away from her. They sold 1, they sold 2. They sold 3, but when it came to her last child, she broke through the ranks and ran to the foot of the slave master and bowed down at his foot and begged him, crying, "Please don't sell my last child. And if you sell him, could you sell with him so I could be with my child?" The slave master looked down at her and kicked her and stomped her. And as she crawled away, crying and shrieking, her last child was sold away. Why do you talk like this, Farrakhan? Don't you realize you're stirring up hatred? Is this why some of you don't like Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ? How many of you saw the movie? I saw it. How many of you saw the terrible beating that was administered to Jesus? The scourging of Jesus, beating him till his body was raw. I saw it. I heard people in the audience crying. One woman couldn't take it and had a heart attack and died because to see her Lord beaten like that, it brought up out of her heart compassion. That's one man. But if you would read this book, Without Sanctuary, I want every white child listening, every white family listening, go get this book. Without sanctuary, I couldn't even read it. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. If you could feel the pain of Jesus in that brutal whipping put on him by the Roman soldiers, then read what happened to our fathers. And they did nothing to Jesus that has not been done to us, and then some. The only problem that Reverend Al and I might have with the movie. See, I understand, Mel, I really understand. You had enough heat as it was, but if you had made him black, if you had followed that part of the scripture and put a little more color in his face, since his mother Mary was an Egyptian woman and his father Joseph was a black man, and Jesus said, I am the seed of David, the root of Jesse, the bright and the morning star. Paint him as he is. See, but if he were black, if you did that to him, Mel, maybe the shrieks in the audience would come up, kill the nigger, burn that nigger. I know that nigger did something wrong. I know I'm talking to the whole world. But neither Arab, Christian, or Jew feel the pain of black suffering. And I'm going to tell you why. That's why all you scholars can talk about God and the kingdom, but you don't mention the transatlantic slave trade. You don't mention the horror of our suffering. Here's why. It's because of something called the Hamitic curse. Now, I know that this is kind of rough, you know, but according to the Babylonian scholars, writers of the Talmud, not the Torah, but the Talmud. Now I want you to listen. Come on, come on, come on. Don't walk away from me now. I know it's painful, but you can't correct the wrong if you don't know it. I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I want us, hopefully, to look at the horror of what was done to an entire people. And I want you to confront your hypocrisy. See? You know that in the Bible, Noah's son that laughed at his father's nakedness was cursed. The Bible don't say he was cursed black. The Bible just said he was cursed. But as black people, you were made to believe that the color of your skin was a divine curse. That's why some black people didn't want the first person in their house on New Year's Day to be black, real black, because that means bad luck would follow them the whole year. And some of us right now, in 2004, got a color problem. Look at this now. The Hamitic curse was written of in the Talmud 400 years after the birth of Jesus. And the way they wrote it was, I got to find the exact words because it's really powerful. I just want to read what the Talmud says, since most blacks don't know the Torah or the Talmud. And many wish that I wouldn't do this, but I can't help it. I got to do it. Oh, Lord, come on now, let me find that. I'm going to take my time. Oh, boy. Well, I'm going to say it. In the Talmud, they talked about because he looked at Noah in that condition and mocked it, the redness of his eyes, turning of his head, made these kinks in his hair, thickness of his lips. That's our features. We were black and cursed. Now you can tell me, oh brother, that's not true. But I'm gonna tell you, it absolutely is true. See, you so-called Jews, I'm not gonna give you the credit for being one of those that obey God. You portrayed us. You know what images do. That's why you jumped on Mel Gibson. But you painted us. Big lips, red eyes, kinky hair. You put us in the movies like that. You mocked our characteristics and made us to hate God's creation of us. You did that. Hollywood did that. Step and Fetch It, Mantan Moreland, Amos and Andy, Butterfly McQueen. Run the road. You take our strongest, more courageous black minds. You think we don't see you? And you put us in Hollywood. You give us television shows. And then we got to buck our eyes. So we got all these blacks in Hollywood now in a modern Step and Fetch It role. Laughing when ain't a damn thing funny. You allow them to prostitute you for $1. I got a call from a black man from Hollywood. I hope you don't mind me saying it. Maybe I better not. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. He don't mind, because he's a strong black man. His name is Yaphet Kotto. They didn't want Yaphet Kotto to keep that name, change it. I'm sure they wanted him to be Tim Witherspoon. But Yaphet Kotto sounds too African-like. He said they offered him a part in Cabin in the Sky. They want to do it again with him as the lead. And he said, Farrakhan, I can't accept these roles. I've been a man in movies. I've stood up as a man in movies, and now they want me to play these degraded roles. I can't do it, and they're hot with me, they're angry with me. But I'm telling you, Hollywood, leave that brother alone. Let me tell you something. Your days are numbered. The finger has written on the wall in blood. Mene, tekel ufasin. Your kingdom has been weighed in the balance and found wanting. Black man and woman, you gotta stand up. Money is not more important than principle. If they can print money, they print it every day. It's a $50 bill. You buy a little crack. Ulysses Grant. He ain't my brother. He ain't my friend. This 50 won't do today what $3 used to do 40 years ago. This money is being devalued. And you sell your soul for $1. A strong black man, Wesley Snipes. See him in The Blade. See him in his movies with these karate steps. Blah, blah, bang. Then they offer you $15 million to play a woman. What happened? What happened? All that strength that you showed giving young black boys, I want to be like Wesley. I want to be like Snipes. Then you come out in a dress, and the boy's confused. I'm almost finished. It hurts me too to have to say this, and I can't say it easy because I'm filled with passion. Yeah, passion of Christ, passion of Muhammad, passion of the prophets, passion for truth. When you understand how we in slavery made England rich. Europe and America benefited from the slave trade. I want to show you the banking institutions that were spawned by slavery. The Dutch West India Company, the British East India Company, all these companies thrived because of slavery. And from them, capitalism got its start and its growth. Slavery spawned the European Industrial Revolution. And out of that came banking institutions that have taken over the world. I'm coming to it. The transatlantic slave trade was the foundation of the European economic system of capitalism. Oh, man. African slavery was the cornerstone of the development of European colonial enterprises in the Caribbean, in the West Indies, Central and South America, and the English colonies that became America. Here's the European nations that participated in the slave trade: Portugal, Spain, Holland, France, and England. The English conquered and enslaved the islands of Barbados, St. Christopher, the birthplace of my mother, called St. Kitts, and Nevis, the birthplace of my grandmother, Antigua, Montserrat, and Jamaica, the birthplace of my father, which the British took from the Spanish. The French conquered and enslaved the islands of Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Dominique, Haiti. I'm going to talk about Haiti for a second. The Portuguese conquered and enslaved the islands of Cape Verde off the western coast of Africa, Sao Tome and Brazil. The Spanish conquered and enslaved the islands of Hispaniola, present-day Dominican Republic and Haiti, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Panama, and traded, excuse me, slaves in Mexico, Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, Argentina, and Guatemala. Blacks all down in there. The Dutch conquered and enslaved the islands of Curacao, St. Eustatius, Tobago, and parts of Brazil. The slaves in the Caribbean, all you West Indian people listening to me this morning, I want you to listen good, because all you think you're free, eh? You better know the West Indies made Europe. And you don't want to ask for nothing. The English colonies, well, products produced in the Caribbean: tobacco, indigo. No, don't cut me off. I know you don't like what I'm saying, but give me, keep the volume there. I'm gonna help you. In Brazil, slaves were not only used on the sugar and coffee plantations, they were used to mine gold and diamonds that were discovered. The English colonies that ultimately became America amassed their wealth through the capitalist enterprise of the transatlantic slave trade in the north and the development of the plantation economy in the south. The English colonies in New York, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts were directly engaged in the commercial activity of the slave trade. Capitalist enterprises such as banking, shipbuilding, and insurance companies were developed to promote and sustain the slave trading business. Now, between 1500 and 1750, the slave trade was the largest employer in Holland and Portugal. Barclays Bank has its financial foundation set deep in the heart of the transatlantic slave trade. Its founders, David and Alexander Barclay, established the bank in 1756 with the profits that they made in their slaving business. Lloyd's of London was a coffee shop, a coffee house. It could not have become one of the biggest finance capital forces in the world without its legacy of dabbling in and insuring British slave ships and their cargoes. Europe and America, wealthy because of slavery. Look, those of you listening in the United Kingdom, there's a city there called Bristol. It was the slave and sugar trades which made Bristol the second city of England for the first 3/4 of the 18th century. A local analyst wrote, "There is not a brick in the city but what is cemented with the blood of a slave." Sumptuous mansions, luxuriant living, liveried menials were the produce of the wealth made from the sufferings and the groans of the slaves bought and sold by the British merchants. Now, after slavery was abolished, and did you know that in the United States, before it became the United States, they were arguing in Congress. I mean, in the, what do you call it, the Constitutional Convention, arguing about you. And guess what they were arguing about? The issue of slavery was the central debate at the convention. The northern delegates would not regard the slaves in any light except as property, and took the position that slaves could not be counted as persons to determine representatives to Congress. But the southern delegates demanded that blacks be counted equally as whites, not because they thought we were equal, but they wanted more representative power in the new nation. So there was a compromise called the 3/5 compromise. So in Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution of the United States, it says, and I quote, "Representatives and direct taxes shall be apportioned among the several states which may be included within the Union according to their respective numbers, which shall be determined by adding to the whole number of free persons, including those bound to service for a term of years, and excluding Indians not taxed, 3/5 of all other persons." So that's how you became 3/5. And guess what? In the first 100 years of this nation, 70 of those years were ruled by Southerners because they counted us as 3/5 of a human being. And they argue over you now, not because they love you. What can they get from you to enhance their position? 10 of the 16 first presidents of the United States were slave owners. That's why when the current generation of white people say, "Well, we didn't do nothing," yeah, but the government of America did. And that's why we have to petition the government. All right. These people fought to extend the slave trade. And the transatlantic slave trade, as horrible as it was, there was another compromise, and they allowed it to exist for 20 more years. The slave trade ended in 1808, but slavery continued. Now, brothers and sisters, I'm going to stop on this now, because the history is something that you can read. But I want you that don't know what happened to you. It's written in books. But if you won't read, you'll go along for the ride. Right now, there's a great election coming up. And there you will be used again. Democratic leaders, boy, that was loud. I woke up somebody that would sleep on the second row. They thought I was blowing a weapon of mass destruction. Black people are so angry with President Bush that they are willing to give Senator Kerry a free ride. That's not wise. That is not wise. You notice how frightened the Democrats are that Ralph Nader has decided he's going to run? Because the 5% that he got in the last election could throw the election to President Bush. So Democrats are saying, hey, damn, look, man, get out of this. We want to get Bush. But what will you get in the place of Bush? I wish that Reverend Al Sharpton, who has been brilliant in the debates, but he knows, I know, you know, we know, they know, he ain't gonna be no president. But let's look at this. Suppose we said, we don't want to give Kerry a free ride, or Bush, because we were all Republicans at one time because of the deceptive trickery of Abraham Lincoln and made you think that you were free. So all of us were Republicans until Franklin Delano Roosevelt came up with the New Deal and dealt from the bottom of the deck, and we got on welfare, WPA, and all of that, and he's been a champion for us. And for 16 years, 4 terms, he died in the 4th term, he elected president, and we've been Democrats ever since, even though the Democratic Party was the party that was for segregation, was for slavery. Talmadge and Bilbo, you need to read them crackers. I mean, those people. You need to read about them. Yeah, all the way up to the 60s. Look at this. Suppose, just suppose, you notice in these debates, ain't nobody raised serious questions about our issues. See, they lumped us in with poor people. I don't even know whether we are a statistic. They say there's 35 million poor people. Some people say it really is as high as 100 million, but we need to end poverty. Everybody need a job. Don't that sound good? It tickles your ears, don't it? Let me tell you something. There's 9 million Americans unemployed. And the unemployed Americans, when they create a job, more than likely, you won't get it. The factories are closing and moving out of America. Industry, manufacturing, going out of the country. Even some high-tech jobs moving out of the country. President Bush says it's okay. I mean, this is all right. So we say in NAFTA, we say in the World Trade Organization, good. But what will that do for you? But suppose we call Reverend Sharpton in and said, look, Reverend Sharpton, let's ask all black voters to hold their vote and let you and a group of skilled people put before either party a program where there's benefit for us as a people. Then you become more powerful than Nader, and people got to listen to what you got to say. You may not get everything that you want, but at least you won't get a speech. You didn't hear me. A speech at the convention. We don't want that. We want some action. Okay? Now, Reverend Sharpton is brilliant. But if you surround him with John Conyers, surround him with Ron Walters, surround him with people that know politics and want to get to American government our issues. What happened to racial profiling? What happened to police brutality and mob attacks? What happened to putting reparations on their mind? Talk about the death penalty. Talk about the uneven sentencing for crack cocaine as opposed to powdered cocaine. Talk about the game that's being played on black people, filling prisons with our men and women. Talk about the movement of crack cocaine from the government. Talk about our issues. A good Jew will never let a politician get his vote unless you can speak effectively to Jewish issues. Black people never give away their vote until you force these people to speak to your issues. And now, in my conclusion, getting rid of Bush and getting John Kerry and leaving the neocons in place will mean that you'll get more of the same. Who are the neocons? See, people like Crystal, Wolfowitz, Pearl, Rumsfeld, Cheney. All of these people are the architects of an imperial program and policy to make America, listen carefully, the power to control the world, but using black bodies, brown bodies, and white bodies to preserve and protect Israel. Right. No, I want you to listen. Listen. These neocons came to Bill Clinton and offered him the plan to remove Saddam Hussein. Are you listening? Bill Clinton didn't go for it. He shot some rockets in Sudan, blowing up a pharmaceutical plant, shot some rockets into Afghanistan trying to kill Osama bin Forgotten, until President Bush saw his numbers slipping, and now Osama bin Forgotten is back in the news again. Have you noticed? I'm going to end this, but I got to show you what's about to go down with the help of God. Look, President Bush, when he came into office, had it in his mind to destroy Saddam Hussein and have a regime change in Iraq. He said this long before 9/11, that his administration was committed to regime change. Once the president says that, and the neocons are the architects of that, then the Washington Post, the New York Times, the Miami Herald, the Los Angeles Times, Newsweek, Time Magazine, U.S. News World Report, CNN, Fox Radio begin the propaganda barrage. Saddam is a terrible man. Saddam is a bad, bad man. Saddam messed up the land. Saddam is a bad, bad man. So damn Saddam. You know. And after they beat those drums, they take a poll. What do you think? We ought to get ready to sit down. Before they make a move, they have to make you think that the man is wicked as hell. Yeah, he did wrong, but he ain't done no more wrong than American presidents. He gassed his own people. Well, how the hell do you think you're in this condition? Somebody been gassing you. Somebody been experimenting on you. Somebody been misusing you. The Hamitic curse has made Christians, Jews, and Muslims see black people in an inferior light.
All right, brothers and sisters, that is part 2 of reparations. What does America owe? If you have anything that you would like to share, press the number 1. Shout out to everybody who's on the Zoom this morning. We got 45 people on this morning. So, man, that's what I'm talking about. Appreciate everybody who invited somebody to the power call this morning. Press the number 1 if you have anything that stands out for you that you would like to share. First, I'll start off with when the minister stated that Moses is a prototype. And honestly, I've never heard him break it down like this, but I've always thought this and broke it down like this when defending who he is when it comes to Aaron and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad being Moses. He said Moses is a prototype. Is a prototype. There will come a man like Moses. Then he said, you can't have a man like Moses without people like the children of Israel. So there has to be a people that's in our condition in modern time. If we say today, hey, we are the real children of Israel, well, where is our modern Moses? Then he says, can't have a man like Moses without a king like Pharaoh. Well, we know that America is Pharaoh, who they came to and said, let my people go. Can't have a man like Moses without 400 years of mistreatment. So if we have this Moses now, or we have this children of Israel now that I think many of us can come to an agreement on, there hasn't been a people that has been enslaved in a strange land for 400 years like us. We see that America is obviously that modern Pharaoh. Well, who is our modern Aaron that had that stammering tongue that met with the God face to face? Then who is that one that would be like an Aaron who had eloquent speech that would take those words and put it, in so much words in that fine language that he has, but he has it from the God, but then he's like Moses' mouthpiece. So we can't take one now and then lead others. So like the way the minister broke that down, then he said the history of Jesus didn't act or be like a man like Moses. He wasn't a slave. That one from 2,000 years ago, that is. So that was one of the first things that stood out to me, the way that the minister broke that down as a prototype. Anybody else have anything that you would like to share, anything that stood out to you? Person number 1 at this time. Let's go to Brother Daniel.
Yes, sir. It is quite a bit, great brother. This message, I actually listened to this, I think about a month ago. It's really hard to believe that this was delivered in 2004. I think that's 20 years to date. But we can see how the cycles of history repeat themselves, because this divine revelation is as prevalent now as it was back when Bush was running for his second term. We as Black people, we are facing everything that this message has revealed. We are facing right now with this current electorate, this current atmosphere. It's interesting to hear about the history of how Cotton fueled the Industrial Revolution, as he stated, in America and Europe. and how cotton was to the economic engine as oil is now. So when it's stated that the middle class built America, no, slaves built America. So I find that to be very powerful. I also found it to be powerful when he mentions how the 3/5 rule came into existence. How the South wanted the slaves to be counted, and they came up with the 3/5 compromise. And he said that same compromise is going on right now. We're not just 3/5. We being counted as a whole human being, but how historically speaking we were Republican when they used us with the chicanery of Abraham Lincoln to so-called free the slaves for the saving of the Union. But then we switched over after President Delano Roosevelt did what he did, and we've been Democrats, or our people have been Democrats ever since. And they've been using us to get in office. So I mean, these historical parallels and timelines is very powerful because it just shows us the springboard boards and motives of why we looking like we looking right now. When he mentioned Genesis 15, this may have been last week, 13, about us being taken into bondage for 400 years, and then after that time, Allah coming to judge that nation that we shall serve. That's powerful because that's core scripture that really points to who are the real children of Israel and the real chosen people of God. That's the big debate right now on the floor. This is why the Middle East is in turmoil, because we have a people who's claiming that, but they're not that. And here we are that, but not claiming that. So this is very important that we must come into the knowledge of the Moses and Aaron. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and he said that Moses and Aaron, in another message, he said Moses is, and Aaron is really Mahdi and Messiah. So he even gave further prophetic reality to that point. What else stood out so much in this message? So it's really in the book, Without Sanctuary. That book is available on Amazon. I went and looked it up because we were discussing this last night, and some of the brothers were saying it's hard to get hold of that book, and it's online for exorbitant prices. But I just went and looked, and it is on Amazon right now for $44. They say they got 30 in stock, but I would grab that book and get it because it does give a very graphic and commentary to some of the horrors, just the tip of the iceberg, as the minister said, of what happened to us. It's really hard to look at. It's very painful, but it's definitely something we have to have so we can be connected to our historic history. So as the minister said, we can't forget this never again. We need books like that and other supporting books to the teachers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad so we can literally see why it is that it's necessary that we accept the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So that's all, fam.
Yes, sir. Let's go to Sister Tamiko.
Assalamu alaikum, peace, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
So definitely agree with what the brother just said before as far as the without sanctuary. It is very important for us to make sure that we share that knowledge with our children. It's more important than ever to make sure that our children understand what happened to us, why we're in this condition, because it's something that is being written out of history. So this is something that the Jews would forbid. They would never allow their children to not understand what they've gone through, which is the reason why even in our institutions or in the public school system, to where they actually, give that information to our children. So I just wanted to say that how important, as an educator, I even feel that we should come up with programs and come up with opportunities where we in the Nation of Islam really push forward these kinds of projects for our children so that they will be able to understand why we're in this condition and where we came from. The next thing I wanted to mentioned was the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan brought to my mind again one of my favorite movies, Passion of the Christ. And I think, in my opinion, that this is the best portrayal of the crucifixion of Jesus. There is no other biblical movie that I even look at. I think I've seen the Passion of Christ 30 times, and I'll look at it again right today because of what I have been taught in the Nation of Islam on the true history of Jesus. And the minister mentioned that it was only one thing that was wrong. It was skin color. And they didn't have that burnished grass. They didn't have that nappy hair. So for Mel Gibson to have that particular portrayal of Jesus, it says a lot about, what he studied and what he knows, but it's also a blessing in disguise, in a sense, to show us as a people how this thing could play out. And Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane in the Passion of the Christ, and we have heard the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan say that the farm is like his Garden of Gethsemane, and the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they each have a portrayal of what happened when they came to get Jesus, when they came to capture him. So I just wanted to say that just came back to my mind. You're going to make me go back and go find the Passion of the Christ. You can't even find the Passion of the Christ anymore. You can't find it on Netflix. It's hard to find that as well. So that's all I have for you, Brother Ben.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Anybody else have anything else that they would like to share? Sister Shalon?
Yes, sir. Okay. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. I find it so disturbing when the minister spoke on the Jews and the Nazis in Germany with regard to the Holocaust. I'll just say that they make sure that, as the minister says, that they let us know of the devastation of the Holocaust at every chance they get. It about a few months or so ago, I'm constantly seeing commercials that talk about the devastation of the Holocaust and how we need to support the Jews and how and them showing how horrible these elder women that they show, how difficult it is for them to even find food now because of the continuous devastation of the Holocaust. And I don't understand how they portray it in the manner that they do, but they never, ever, ever, I've never seen any commercial anywhere or any conversation about Blacks in slavery as if slavery never existed. And some people, in the foolishness of their minds, even talk about how slavery benefited us or just wasn't as we, quote unquote, depicted to be. But it has been and will always be disturbing to me how they really make sure we know about the Holocaust, but let anyone dare talk about slavery and the devastation that it caused millions and millions of us. So I wanted to point that out, of how disturbing that is, that they keep that in the forefront all of the time, but slavery doesn't exist to them. Oh, that's all I had.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else have anything that they would like to share from the message that you got today? Anything that stood out? Anything that made you think? Anything that made you say, aha? Go ahead and share, or press the number 1 if you have something that you would like to add at this time. All right. With that being said, I thank you all for being on your power call this morning. Inshallah, we'll be back on in the morning. If you would like to join us inside of our community and be able to share, go to www.thepowercall.net, www.thepowercall.net. Y'all have a black-tastic day, and assalamu alaikum. Peace.
Brother Ben here? Brother Ben. Now, Ben got a heck of a program. A lot of people listening to Brother Ben. And Ben tells them about the minister. And Ben tells them about the minister.